and just ensuring that her accounts aren't protected from arbitrary social engineering. And unfortunately, in this case, her phone gets SIM swapped. So it starts sometime in the past where an online provider or maybe even a mobile subscriber gets compromised, and thousands, if not millions, of records are stolen. At some point now, she's gaming on Roblox, she's having fun with her friends, and then she's noticing that her phone loses internet connectivity. This seems odd, but she doesn't think anything of it. After about 15 minutes, she realizes that she's not receiving any type of email or communication. And then about 5 minutes later, while she's gaming, she loses her account, forces her to log out. And then after that, her account's been taken over. This leads to an immediate panic. She doesn't know what's happened. She's just caught off guard, and she's in this bubble because now she doesn't have the phone. So let's present some situational awareness here. What happened? Why did it happen? What are some steps for recovery? And then how do we protect ourselves? Like, what can we do in an online digital age to make sure that our accounts are safe and that our identities can't be easily stolen from us? And so that's what the motivation is for this talk, and we'll talk about for the rest of the evening. So first of all, I want to lead off with why or how do hacks happen? Like, who is responsible? In general security practice, we refer to a threat as this nebulous person or entity that is trying to get at all of our goodies. So it's our email accounts, it's our Facebook accounts, our social network, our financial net worth, whether it's in Bitcoin or in a bank, our identity, and our friends. These are valuable because an attacker can take these and leverage it to gain more financial gain, to gain more access, to gain more goodies. And the way they do it is through a violation of security. And security can be anything from our account doesn't have multi-factor authentication, so they guess the password. Our account doesn't have protections to prevent social engineering when somebody calls in and pretends to be us. It could be a violation of a program that we're using, and we downloaded it from the internet and we trusted it because it came from one of our friends, and so we just inherently trusted it to be safe. There's a number of factors, but the end result is that some threat is looking to gain access to some object that we hold valuable. We want to prevent this. Generally, the consequences of a hack can range from anywhere from the loss of access to our online accounts to reputational harm. It just depends on what we are looking for. Unfortunately, there's also collateral damage, because if an attacker gains access to our social networks, like our Roblox friends or our friends on Facebook or our friends on whatever social network we're using, like Snapchat or Instagram, they can instantly broadcast as us that we need help, we need money, or we need something, and then further ensnaring our friends into this scam. And it becomes really difficult for people to understand the situation because they think that we're in immediate harm, and it just leads to badness. And then one of the greatest consequences are the loss of our own identity or sensitive information. And so it goes without saying that if we take a little bit more precaution and enact some more prevention, we can prevent these types of attacks and these types of experiences. So now I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what Roblox does when we help people recover their accounts. So first of all, we can't do anything to help somebody recover their account until they notify us. Upon notification, we will take action to prevent the attack or prevent any additional access. We will perform an investigation to determine what has happened, why it has happened, and who did it. Then we'll do some analysis on what we found during our investigation. Has this affected other people, other top devs, other game developers, other people using the platform? And then we take action. We try to remediate and correct all of the wrong that's taken place. I'll note that we tend to limit this, so we appreciate that people, once they experience this type of situation, they take as much precaution as they can and work to secure not just their Roblox accounts, but all their other accounts that someone might gain access to, then get into Roblox. So in general, what we ask for when you start to request a remediation is that you have secured any email accounts that are associated with your Roblox accounts. This is important because generally Roblox will rely on that email address to communicate with you. And if that email address is not secure, then that means the attacker can still act as you and continue to take over the account. The next thing that we really ask, and it's very important, is that you contact us within 30 days of the incident. You tell us all the stolen items with screenshots and a list of stolen Robux. So this is important. This requires a little bit of preemptive action where you go and catalog all of your current items. You take screenshots and you keep them in a safe place. So that way, when somebody does gain access to your account, they can't take your inventory and use it against you. And you also want to keep this safe because if you lose your computer, if somebody gains access to your computer, they might do something along the lines of encrypt all your data, like with a ransomware attack. And so the goal is to be able to use that to recover any lost items. So a good second step is to not only take those screenshots, create those lists, but also store them on a USB key in a safe place. So when we talk about protecting your Roblox account, what we really look for is, one, you associating an email address with your account. So that way, if any changes take place, if somebody's trying to authenticate as you with 2SV, it's going to your email. We ask that you associate a phone number to your account, so that way you can receive account resets. And then we also ask that you enable two-step verification. Two-step verification is a way for us to ensure that when you're logging on, it's you. So the way the process would work is you would log into Roblox. Roblox would send you to the 2SB two-step verification page, and then it will send you an email with a magical PIN that's going to be used as a second factor of authentication to let you into Roblox. And then with this helps reduce the risk of having your account taken over without your knowledge. So I want to switch gears a little bit because I've mentioned this topic of security. What is security? What does it mean? And how do we wrap our heads around it? And so generally, the first concepts that we want to learn about when we talk about security are confidentiality, integrity, accountability, and authorization. So confidentiality is basically keeping secrets secret. So if I send you a secret message, I'm going to do something along the lines of encrypt it so that way nobody else can intercept and read it. So the next thing we want is integrity. So if I send you an encrypted message, I want that message to get through to you without anything being changed. And so the way we measure this change is through integrity. If the message changes, then that means you can't trust it. So a lack of integrity means, or when integrity is compromised, that means that somebody might be intercepting and manipulating the messages. And so that means that our confidentiality has probably been voided and violated. So the next step is accountability. How do we hold people responsible online for taking actions? So accountability is something that goes hand in hand with authorization. And authorization is the ability to take an action on an object and then make a change. So with accountability and authorization, what we really want to do is we want to hold somebody accountable with some sort of identity and then have some sort of authorization model where we're allowing them to do things with our account. So in the case of Roblox, we might be part of a shared group, and we would authorize other people to be part of that group. And those people who are part of the group can make changes or do things that we give them privilege to. So this is very, very important that anytime we invite somebody to be part of our group, that we can hold them accountable and assign some level of authorization so that when they take action, they are allowed to do so or not allowed to do so. So what this all feeds into is trust and verification. So security, with these 4 different fundamentals, helps give us some sense of trust and verification. We can look at secrets. We can trust that they're secret because we can measure their integrity. We can hold people accountable because we know who's sending us messages. And then we can look at authorization. So are these people authorized to do certain things? So now that we have these ideals of security, what does that really mean? So now we can understand attack surface. So attack surface is basically what can a threat, this nebulous person, this nebulous object, do to harm me or to get at my personal effects or digital footprint. And so once we can articulate what an attack surface is, what security means, now we can talk about how do we protect it. So in this case, we have two systems here. We have our casual, like friendships and things we do for fun, recreational stuff, and then we have our business affairs, things that we do, to make money, to further our business, to keep our reputation going. And so the point is, we really want to keep the two separate. So that way, when we start looking at our personal or professional attack surface, we are commingling the two and making it much more complex to defend ourselves. So, for instance, if I'm doing business on a laptop, I want to make sure that I'm not downloading or using any tools that I might do casually, and that might lead to the compromise of my system. For instance, downloading malware or downloading a document that compromises my machine. I want to be very careful about stuff like that. So the notion of attack surface lets us separate those two and understand how a threat would actually come at us. So how do we protect ourselves in a professional sense and in a business sense? Well, it really comes down to a number of different things. So I always start with talking about account security. So people make fun of me because I have the longest passwords, but I can't ever remember those passwords. So I use something akin to a password manager. It lets me create strong passwords, unique passwords. It means passwords that aren't reused across multiple sites. And then it also helps me populate the passwords on sites that I trust. So the other part of this notion of security and confidentiality is, how do we know when we are talking to somebody who we can trust, especially online? So there's this concept that was born when the internet was first incepted. First, it was called secure sockets layer. Now it's called transport layer security. But the essence is, it's an identity. So whenever somebody stands up a website, they are looking to gain your trust and hope that you will use the website without being afraid that your identity or your sensitive information will be compromised. So they use TLS to obtain a certificate that identifies them uniquely on the internet, and we can use those TLS certificates for securing traffic between clients and servers, and then for verification to ensuring that we know who's actually providing that service. So I've talked about this notion of password management, but another part of security when it comes to accounts is multi-factor authentication. A multi-factor authentication is a combination of something you know, something you have, such as a mobile phone or a fingerprint, and then something you are, which would be the fingerprint, and then the password, which is something that you have. Something you have, something you know, and then something you are. So there's three, but you can combine the something you have and something you are in a single device on your mobile phone. But I digress. So you want to use multi-factor authentication. The reason why you would want to use multi-factor authentication is because that means that if your password gets swept up in, say, like a compromise from a website or from a mobile subscriber or some other means, they have to have some other factor to actually compromise your account. So that means they would have to know who you are, know what you are, and then have your password, something you know. And generally, this serves as a pretty good way to stop most online account takeovers. So now that we know a little bit about how to protect our accounts, what do we do to protect our communications? How do we protect our mobile phone? So a lot of services today rely on the notion of SMS two-factor authentication. It's not very secure. It can be intercepted, and it can be a little less secure than using something traditionally like Authenticator or a YubiKey. But it still works. So, and our case with Donnie, she was SIM swapped, and SIM swapping is one of the reasons why mobile subscribers shouldn't be used for second factor authentication. So what do we do to protect ourselves if we require a phone number? So what I tend to do is I create a virtual number with Google Voice, and so then anytime I'm required to get a text with a secret PIN, it's going actually to my Google Voice number and not my mobile subscriber. The significance here is that when we have a SIM swap situation take place, the text, if we receive a security PIN, won't go to the mobile subscriber number, the actual number that got SIM swapped. It'll go to the virtual number, and the virtual number hasn't been associated with the new number. It generally goes to a single account. So we can sidestep this potential attack because, again, the PIN is going to an app. It's not necessarily going to the phone. The other thing to do is make sure that you lock down your mobile subscriber account. So the way to do this is to ensure that you request that somebody has to be in person, somebody has to show ID, and somebody has to have the secret PIN to change the account number. If they don't have those things, they shouldn't be able to call tech support and make those changes. The other thing to protect our communications is email. This is one of those crucial elements of communication that we all have grown to trust and most businesses rely upon. So email, a lot of times, people will only enable the single-factor communication, the password. I think that's slowly changing with a lot of the major providers, such as Microsoft or Google, where they use a screen with a secret number to kind of secure the authentication process, but not everybody enables that. And the problem is those people are susceptible to password compromises. So my advice to that is, take the extra effort, install Authenticator, associate it with your account. Also, ensure that you turn on the two-step authentication with those with those email providers. So the next step, apart from protecting the most crucial communications, is protecting our online accounts. So in general, I try to break up my accounts into several groups. I have a trusted group of accounts that I always use, like LinkedIn, Facebook sometimes, and then some other social media. Then there are my business accounts. These are the ones that I take extra precaution when I'm using. I'm making sure that any communication takes place via SSL. I'm not running it on an untrusted system. It's the system that I own and know. And then there's the other stuff, which is going to be, things that you just sign up for randomly because you might want to go try it out, but it's not necessarily important. So by breaking up these groups of communication into three specific groups, I help limit the attack surface, and I help to ensure which ones are important, and I protect those the best that I can. The other ones I just kind of let fall by the wayside, and I'm not too concerned if anything happens to them. And I also measure how much information I put into these accounts. In general, my trusted groups and my business groups have more personal information that I would put in the other. So the other group might be something I'd make up a fake name, fake birthday, fake email address, and I would go about my business. Whereas my business and my trusted groups, I have to be very specific about who I am, what I do, and how to contact me. The other things to minimize when communicating online and communicating with these services is information related to addresses and travel. So a lot of us have become very accustomed to sharing things online about where we're traveling and who we're traveling with. That type of behavior can be a little risky because what it does is it lets somebody know when they can come to your home or when they can come or when to go after your accounts because they know that you will not be able to take any action to protect them or respond or remediate the situation. So always minimize how much you're sharing, be cognizant of what or who you're sharing it with, and also be aware that anything you share can be scooped up online and used and to further an attack. So now I want to talk about some other situations and offer some guidance about how to protect yourself in those means. So for identity theft, generally people might find very personal information about another individual online and use this to take over their identity. There are ways to prevent that with blocking the credit reports. You basically set up a pen with your credit provider, and then also work to monitor those reports regularly for any anomalies. Like, for instance, there was one occasion where someone attempted to take out a loan in my name, and my credit broker or the credit bureau basically blocked it because they couldn't confirm my identity. Another thing to use is a monitoring service to monitor when your when new social media accounts might be popping up in your name and broadcasting it yourself. Minimize how much credit you hold on credit cards, or even allow for when you take out loans. And personally, I only use 2 specific credit cards, and then the rest of it is either online payments or through other means. And the other thing to do is talk to your financial institutions about where you are. They generally have become more sophisticated, aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it. So it's much easier to talk to them and let them know when you're traveling. So the other things that occur are social engineering. So a lot of times, social engineering is a way for people to use things against you, leveraging your emotions or whatever. Generally, the first thing I always say is stop, breathe, think, and wait. You always want to scrutinize messages. So, for instance, when people post these, or when we come across these websites that offer Roblox or free Roblox, and all you have to do is paste in this JavaScript, and it's gonna send you to the site. Stop, breathe, think. So, why would we be giving away free Robux, and why would we ask you to plug in JavaScript in order to get those Robux? This leads to the next thing. I'm going to scrutinize all messages, because the internet can be a very untrustworthy place. So we shouldn't be trusting strangers to just give things away for free. In cases where you're dealing with somebody, either on the phone or online, it's not against the law to ask for some sort of identification, for somebody to prove who they are, so that you can authenticate who they are and determine if they're authorized to even ask you for that information. A lot of times I get these weird calls from people, and I'll take the extra step and I'll research who it is, and I'll ask for more information so that I can go and do my own research and do due diligence. So when it comes to swatting and bullying, these are very sensitive topics. I always try to tell people, I don't try to tell people anything. I try myself to remain calm. If I ever come across any instances of this, I notify the authorities. I also work with them. If I become too overwhelmed, I'm not afraid to go and talk to somebody and ask for assistance, because under these circumstances, it can just become an emotional stress and a burden, and it shouldn't be that way. So you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help, and you should certainly not be afraid to notify and work with the authorities to help deal with the issues at hand. And the final thing I want to talk about are malicious programs and services. We work in a place where I myself use a lot of online utilities. I use them from things like GitHub or trusted sources. Sometimes I don't trust the files that I run, and so it's very difficult to understand what they're doing. I can go and read the source code in the case of GitHub, but my time it's sometimes very limited. So there are other services such as VirusTotal or antivirus that can be used to kind of help judge whether a piece of software is safe. Under no certain terms should you ever run an untrusted program that comes from an untrusted site. It just it can lead to hazards that are just very difficult hazards and challenges that are very difficult to overcome. And if VirusTotal tells you that the file is malicious, chances are it probably is, and you probably shouldn't use it, unless maybe you know what you're doing. In that case, have at it. So the call to action that I ask from the audience is, we've talked about security. We've talked about what can go wrong. So the first thing to do is establish a trust model that's comfortable for yourself. Focus on how you can keep yourself safe based off of this trust model. And don't ever trust strangers. Don't trust people who try to offer you things for free unless you know who they are and can absolutely trust them. use tools to help ease the security burden. So LastPass, 1Password for password management, using VirusTotal to help you understand what programs might be malicious. These things can help you. Furthermore, create and rehearse a plan that will help you respond to an incident. So it's one thing to say, yeah, I'll go do something, but actually walk through the steps. Let's say that your account is compromised. Who do you contact? How do you get in contact with them? What happens if you don't have a phone? These are important things to understand, so that way you're not caught in a panic and worried about what's going to happen next. You have a way to think your way through the problem. And then finally, take active precautions on your accounts, even your Roblox ones, to ensure that you're enabling multi-factor authentication. You're associating ways, especially in the cases of important accounts, for people to get in contact with you. So that way, if you do have an account takeover situation, you can refer to the history on the account. So that way, there's no real guessing taking place. And then finally, if you ever have any problems with your Roblox account, feel free to reach out to customer service. I went a little bit long, but I would like to open it up to questions now. And thank you for your time. So feel free to send any questions into the chat panel in Zoom. So the first question that I have is Roblox planning to offer any of the same systems that other companies might use, as far as information for support teams and account ownership? I don't know that I can answer that question. It's a very specific one. So is Roblox going to offer two-factor authentication? Yes, we are actively working to implement Google Authenticator. Stay tuned. We are working through a beta, and it will probably be GA sooner than we think. So the Google Titan security key is a great idea. I will definitely forward that along to our account security team. Yes, two-factor authentication is cool. So are there any other questions?
Can a child really study and listen to music?
All right, well, we are at the half hour. Again, I appreciate your time and thank you for coming to this talk. We hope to have a few more with information security and other security teams to talk about how to keep you safe online. All right, have a good evening, everybody. Bye. And just ensuring that her accounts are protected from arbitrary social engineering.